and bring it back to the committee.
Yeah, this is just identify those
Right.
priorities, so that could be a goal for your first or second meetings.
Okay. So I think that's pretty much it for policy.
Yes, one down.
Next,
A little
under
faster, Kathy, I promise.
budget goal, and the overriding goal is the school committee reviews and approves a budget which allows the school system to meet its educational goals. Some of the strategies, actions here are, the first one is review eliminated programs and positions due to historical budget cuts, and then along with that, to prioritize programs and staffing for restoration. Some of you out there may not know that we never fully restored the computer labs and the libraries at the elementary schools. I think the libraries are only open 2 or 3 days a week at some of the schools, and the computer labs are not open at all times. I know we've talked about the computer labs and how worthwhile they are to, do we really need to reopen them, and could we do, if we have the funds, could we do something else with that money and technology? So this would be, I'm assuming we'd have to have a couple of us responsible for this in terms of reviewing these positions and which ones we think we recommend for restoration.
Well, I'd suggest that you ask the superintendent's office to put this list together. I could work with Carl to identify what those cuts were.
Okay.
And then, of course, we would bring it back to the committee. So persons responsible would be the superintendent and the director of finance and operations. I didn't want to presume that, so I didn't put it in, but I think that's something that we can bring back to you as a committee.
That makes sense, everybody?
Excellent
On,
idea, excellent.
Bringing it up, are you gonna plan on showing us the cuts by year?
Yes.
Or just in general? I
No,
prefer
by
by
year.
year
Yeah.
By year.
and position.
Yes, by year and position, both programs as well as personnel.
Mhm.
Okay. And as far as prioritizing, I was thinking that would be the school committee.
Right, so you bring those back to us, and then we could talk about it in terms of what we might want to put into the budget for next year.
Right, and then a restoration plan can be created.
Okay.
As far as identify new programs and positions for consideration.
I would think that you and the administrative council would, again, review that and then come to us. That's usually closer to budget time, or early next, would that be early next year, Carl, or would that be December we usually?
I think all of these, frankly, are late November, early December.
Right.
I would think the administrative team, would have recommendations, and then anything we wanted to add to that, we could do it, right?
Right. So that would be late November, early December for those two.
Yes.
Professional development opportunities, oops. Okay. Professional development opportunities, that's also going to be, I think, the superintendent.
Yes, and the Director of Academic Services
Okay.
will be chairing the district-wide Professional Development Committee.
Okay, on that subject, how do we fare compared to other districts in terms of our professional development opportunities that we provide staff?
Well, there's a wide array of ways to conduct professional development for a school district. I could get a lot of information from my colleagues across the state, but I can speak to you anecdotally in my experiences. The last place that I worked, we had 2 full professional development days and 10 early release days for the purpose of professional development.
Wow.
That's awesome.
We had identified, we had a 5-year plan for initiatives that we were moving forward, and we identified how each of those early release days would be used a year in advance. Some of those days were used for district-wide initiatives, and some of those days were used for building-based initiatives, because as you know, schools are in different places with implementing different initiatives across a district. So it's a very, very well articulated plan that can be moved forward. I've seen other districts have 4 full professional development days and fewer early release days. So it runs the gamut, but
But we only have 2 days,
you
that's
have
it.
2 full days, that's it.
So you answered my question without answering. It seems like we're lagging behind, where I think in the past, we did not lag behind. We had, maybe 6, 8 early release days for professional development in the past. But
Well,
I know we cut back on that when we cut back on the budget.
I think it
Correct,
would be
right?
important for the Professional Development Committee to take a look and gather some data
And you
from,
said that would be, Patrick will be chairing that?
yes, he will.
Okay.
There's a
And-
lot of good information out there. There's also a wonderful report that was released last spring. It's called Professional Learning in the Learning Profession, and it has wonderful recommendations based on a scientific research project that was done regarding professional development in the United States as well as abroad. So I found it to be very intriguing to take a look at not only what's typical in the United States, but what's typical in other countries as well.
And again, we'd probably want, do you know when he's gonna be meeting? Because we probably want some input on that in the late November timeframe for budget reasons, if there are things we wanna add, correct?
Yes, I think at our next meeting, we will go over the budget goals and the budget
Okay,
timetable in more
that's right, so we
detail.
can, okay,
And we'll work with these, we'll work it in.
okay.
That's a great idea. And then maintain and improve school facilities.
I think that's partially with what we're doing with secondary school building project, but I think one of the concerns the committee has is how every year we're cutting the expense budgets for each of our schools. And if we continue to do that, there will be no expense budgets, and it'll be difficult to maintain our buildings as well as we'd like.
Would it make sense to get some info from Wayne on that, Kyle?
I think so, yes. I mean, he and I work closely together to develop the capital plan, the 5-year capital plan, and we update that twice a year. So he's certainly an important part of this.
Yeah, I would think Wayne and Carl can get us kind of an update on the status of our buildings.
And
Any
again,
issues?
Try to prioritize.
Right.
You know, if they come back to us with a list, we could try to prioritize what things we think we could get done.
So then we would need to edit the strategy a little bit, because really the this goal here is a school committee goal. This is what we do, is improve these facilities through budgetary planning. So would we change this to identify opportunities to maintain and improve school?
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
then the second goal would then be to prioritize those improvements, and that would be school committee. Does that make sense?
No, I'm not following.
So, like we do for programs and restoration of limited programs and things like that, we would then ask Wayne and Carl to come back to us with a list of, opportunities for improving school facilities. From that list, a second goal would be for the school committee to review
Oh,
that list
right.
and prioritize. So it's the same
Right.
thing we would be doing with eliminated programs and positions.
Right, we would review the list,
Same
right, and set
stratification.
priorities for, okay, okay, I gotcha.
And that way we have, again, we're working together across the central office and our,
Now, the one thing we don't have under here, and maybe it's speaks for itself in the main budget goal, but, we don't have anything that, states approve a budget that at a minimum is, what's the wording we wanna use here? Level services, I guess. Do we wanna have that as a strategy action, approved budget that supports level services at a minimum?
well, that's the objective.
That's your objective?
Okay,
So all of these activities will
that will
then
support that,
support that goal, and then we can measure that.
okay. As long as that's up there, I
Yeah, that's
glossed
very
right over that.
important. Okay.
May I just ask, underneath persons responsible in measurement, with the changes that were just made to that last action under the budget, identify school facilities improvements, I know that would be Carl and Wayne. The measurement of that, small and large cap lists updated?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And then prioritize improvements, that would be the school
School committee.
committee, and the priorities identified would be the measurement.
Right.
And
Yes.
you're looking for all of this to happen by early December?
Yep.
Still?
I don't know if small and large cap don't necessarily have to be then, right, Carl?
Actually, you're
small
right.
cap would
You're
be,
right,
but-
we would do that later in the process.
Right, small cap is driven by the budget.
Right,
so
large cap is
Large
usually,
cap is driven by town meeting
And on
whenever
Large
the
cap,
warrant
you may not even
deadline
get
is.
to it until the fall.
right. Okay,
So probably large cap, the date on large cap would be somewhere in the February, March timeframe.
right. The small cap would be driven by budget.
Late November,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
Now, communication, The goal is the school committee works to enhance communication with constituencies and the community. Conduct a now, a lot of this would fall under the purview of the communication subcommittee, correct, which you're going to, hopefully we'll get a meeting set up tonight.
That was my understanding, but again, you'll notice that there's nothing there under persons responsible, because I just wanted to make sure that that was your intent.
I think the first three are the communication subcommittee responsibility. Conduct a communication needs assessment, identify areas of improvement, and develop and implement a response to those needs. I think that would be communication subcommittee.
I agree.
And then hold informal meetings with community members. We know who that is, the superintendent. Quarterly newsletter on the state of the North Reading School District. That's a good idea, because we have I think most principals do a monthly newsletter. And I'm wondering if that couldn't be some form of taking one or two articles from each of those school newsletters, and then whoever is writing it adding a few other things related to the district as a whole. Because I don't get to see, I do get to see, because we usually get them here, but most residents don't know what's going, if their kid goes to the Little, they don't know what's going at the Hood, or the Batch, or the
I
middle
know
school,
the
or
high school
the high school.
newsletter's pretty extensive.
The high school,
It's like
John does a
small
great job,
newspaper.
right, John
Yeah.
does a great job with the high school newsletter.
So should the community subcommittee pull those articles or those?
The communication subcommittee can
Yes.
work on that, but I think if we get, provided we get each of those newsletters every month or every 6 weeks, whenever they come out, and then we can say, geez, these 6 or 7 would be great for the district newsletter. Now, the question I have is distribution. That can be put on the website is a way we can distribute that, right? And I'm wondering if we can talk,
Or an email too.
we could email them, we could email the link,
Now,
right? And I'm wondering if this is necessary, but if we could work with the transcript. I know that they publish the Deliberator, which is the high school newspaper, which comes out, I don't know, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks. If we could give this to them and they could pick and choose some of the key articles that they would want to, don't say to them, we want this whole thing in, but give it to them and they can pick and choose the key things they want to get in the newspaper. Because if we, as Michael says, we email, we have it on the website, and we put it in the newspaper, that should pretty much cover everybody who really wants to see it. So the due dates on that, I guess, would just be quarterly, right? Like at C1.
I can map those out and I'll bring this
Okay.
back to you.
And the same thing with the informal meetings with community members. You can map out do you have some ideas on how you want to approach that?
I do. I just need to contact some of the establishments
Okay.
in the community to see if they would mind if I
Okay.
use their space to sit and meet with people.
Don't forget, we should be having come February, we should be having a new Heavenly Donuts open, so maybe we can combine a grand opening of Heavenly Donuts with a community meeting with the superintendent.
What kind of establishments do you have
Yeah.
in mind?
Coffee shops,
Trying
Jerry.
not to help you.
All right, I was just curious.
You don't have to use any electronic communication.
No, we have there's a couple of bagel shops in town, and
Sure.
there's, Dunkin' Donuts and a couple other places that are open for coffee, so that'd be
It would
good.
be a coffee hour, so to speak.
Yes. Then we have,
You know what would be interesting, actually? Speaking of electronic communications, why can't we do like a ask the superintendent type of thing, like the
Chat
Boston
room?
Globe does in the sports section? It's just chat room, some sort of thing.
Wow,
Online?
that's interesting.
Real time?
Real time.
So when
When
is
is
she
she
gonna
gonna
get the
find
rest
time
of her
to do
work
that?
done? Seriously.
No. Instead of,
Seriously.
in lieu of meeting personally in one of the sessions, maybe she meets once a quarter at one of the locations, but one of those quarters are out of her office
Well, you know, it's
electronically from like
interest-
12 to 1 or something. For
Yeah,
those parents that
or-
are working and things like that.
Yeah, you could do like an early evening one where you could communicate on a particular topic that people are interested, so it would extend the discussion on issues.
I think one of those a year wouldn't be bad. I mean, they're gonna have to be
Consideration.
closely moderated. We need to set some good guidelines. We don't need a lot of, kids getting on, and they'll all be anonymous.
And they'd be
and-
moderated, so you can,
Right.
any of us or someone from the school can do it, sit and
I think it's something to consider.
filter the questions.
It is something to consider.
I think that's a good idea.